If you've ever had a transfer student walk into your piano lesson studio not knowing how to read the notes at all, you know how important early note reading skills are. Hey, if we haven't met yet, I am Phoenix. I'm the tattooed piano teacher and the author of the Piano Skill Set Supplemental books. Today we are talking about all of the important skills that primer level students need to master in order to become excellent musicians and great note readers. These 14 skills are taken right out of my books, and if you're interested, there's a link below to check out more and do a little flip through. They're available on Amazon if you're interested. In this video, I'll talk about what I mean by primer level skills, why they're important, I'll list out the skills for you, and give you some tips on how to most successfully introduce and review these skills. And throughout the video, I'll share my own personal philosophy about how to introduce notes on the staff that is woven into these books. So first of all, what do I mean by the primer level? I know every method book series kind of has its own labeling system. So for my series, the first level is called pre-reading. And if you're interested in pre-reading skills that need to be established before notes are even introduced on the staff, check out this video first and then come on back here. Primer level skills are those early reading skills. So for my books, it's a pretty easy primer level, and it doesn't go as far as some of the primer level books. However, it takes a nice, slow, heavy on the review approach to introducing notes on the staff. And just to give you an idea, my primer level writing and technique books would correlate beautifully with these lesson books. So why are these early reading skills so vital to the long-term success of our piano students? The most obvious reason is that we have to set that firm foundation for note reading because there are so many notes to learn on the staff if you are a piano player, and the journey doesn't stop with 10 notes, 20 notes, it keeps going off the staff. By doing this, we, number 2, avoid future challenges. Building a system of reading notes that works well for students means that they're going to struggle less later on. And number 3, by really focusing on that solid foundation of early note reading skills and not moving on until we're ready to, our students are going to feel a sense of empowerment and not overwhelmment. Okay, great. Now that we've got that established, let's go over what the 14 primer level or early reading skills are. Number 1, establishing forte versus piano. I do know that a lot of method books talk about this really early on, and I'm not against that at all. It's totally fun to play around with soft and loud sounds with really young students, and sometimes I even do that in the first lesson. But as far as expecting them to play an entire piece or a portion of a piece with the correct finger tension, I usually find that waiting a little bit to expect that out of a performance on the keys works a little better in my experience. Number 2 is allegro versus largo. Again, I do like to play around with fast and slow tempos in general with very young kids before we even talk about the terminology, but at some point they really do need to learn these Italian terms, and this is where I chose to put them in the series. In my books, we think of forte as a lion and piano as a mouse. And in my books, allegro is represented with a hopping bunny, and then the snail represents largo. Half rests and whole rests are also introduced. My primer level book has a theme of zoo animals, and so we have our happy little kangaroo demonstrating the half hat and the whole hole. Then we talk about line notes and space notes, which I think it's worth spending some time on before you ever get to the note names. Just understanding how the staff actually works and the notes on it is so vital for understanding the note names later on. And then we talk about steps and skips on the staff. We covered steps and skips in the previous level, which is the pre-reading level, on the piano keys so that students are familiar with the terms and how they work with their fingers on the keys. Now we're establishing that steps go line, space, or space, line, and that skips are going to be line, line, space, space. So they're correlating what they already know how to do with their fingers to what they're seeing on the staff lines. Next, we are focusing on numbering the lines and spaces. Again, I feel like this is so overlooked and just kind of glazed over by most method book series. And I think it's so important that they understand how to talk about notes, like the bass clef F is on line number 4 and the treble clef G is on line number 2. Using that terminology, drawing on the lines and spaces, and understanding that is going to help them so much down the line. And notice we have not introduced any actual notes or the grand staff yet, but that's coming soon. Number 7 is just getting used to the treble and the bass clefs and associating them with the right hand and the left hand. And then number 8, we put it together in a grand staff. Now things are really coming together and we're ready to introduce what the actual note names are. Now, personally, I don't find it super helpful to just introduce one note at a time when we're first starting. So I introduce a grouping of 3 because I think that students most naturally see notes in relation to each other. It's very rare for a student to be able to memorize where on the staff a note is. It's much more natural for them to associate notes with each other. For instance, if they learn what the middle C looks like, they can learn that the D is next door and the E is next door. So I really like relating notes to each other, and the note speller method where we're like extracting one note and putting it on a flashcard, I feel like is less effective until they are a little bit later on. So that's my personal philosophy. So we introduce the treble clef C, D, E first so they can get used to reading those steps. Next, we're going to introduce a grouping of left hand notes. Again, we are working with C, B, and A so they can see the relation of the stepwise motion between the 3 notes. It is much more natural for them to associate stepping down from C to B and where that B is in relation to the C than just cold turkey being able to name a B on the staff. That will come later. Number 11, we're going to add in the double bar line and repeat sign. Now, it's quite possible they've seen these in their music before, but I find that students see these and don't really completely understand what they mean. So here we are actually drawing them and really retaining the meaning of them. Same thing with number 12, the bar lines and the measures. I've had many a transfer student come to me without knowing what the word measure meant. And I said, start at measure 5, and they didn't know what I meant. So I really feel like this is worth talking about and reviewing with our young students so that they understand the terminology of the music and they understand the layout of their songs better. It's going to make them better sight readers. And finally, we're going to add on the rest of the middle C position notes. So we're going to learn treble clef F and G together so we can relate them to each other in stepwise motion on the staff. And then they are going to be playing all 5 notes of the treble clef scale. And finally, skill number 14 is left hand or bass clef G and F, learning those together, relating them to each other, learning to identify one against the other, and then introducing them to the other 3 notes that they already know. So playing all 5 notes of the left hand. And then the final thing would be playing all 10 notes that they know on the staff in a middle C position, which can be quite challenging, especially for young students. But if we've taken all these steps and done lots of review, they should be ready for it by the end of my primer level book. Now, this set of skills is super helpful to keep in mind so we're not skipping over anything or rushing anything. But you also have to keep in mind that how you introduce the skills matters almost as much that you are introducing these 14 skills. So I'm going to just give you some quick tips on how to successfully introduce skills to the primer level student. Before I list those off, please hit the like button if you are interested in hearing piano teacher tips or more content like this. And if you hope to see my face again in another video, be sure to hit the subscribe button. Okay, so how matters? The trifecta of introducing a new concept: playing, identifying, and writing or drawing. In that order, I find is the most helpful. Not just doing 1, not just doing 2, doing all 3, doing in the mat order, and reviewing all 3. So once again, they play it first, they learn to identify it with their eyes, and they learn to emulate it by drawing or writing it on the page. That's the secret formula. Now, in addition to that, I think it's important to give them bite-sized new information, feeding it to them in exactly the right timing based on their personal needs, but always associating it with something that they know, that they're familiar with. So bite-sized bits of new information, always associated with things they know. And review, review, review. I feel strongly that method books that we know and love do not review enough. And that's one of the reasons that I created the Piano Skill Set series, is because this is what I want for my students. It's the amount of review that I like for them. And sometimes they even need more, and you can add supplemental printables or whatever you need on top of that. But don't just trust your method book to review, because oftentimes they do not. And my final tip is have patience as you're introducing these early reading skills. Take it slow, lots of demonstration. Don't expect them to remember things the first time you show or tell them something new. And don't be afraid to do the work together. Do the writing pages together. Find the hand positions together. Play the notes together. Lots of demonstration, lots of together. That way they are associating the correct sounds with what they're seeing in front of them. It's going to make them great musicians, well-rounded note readers in the end. So if after hearing my philosophy on introducing notes on the staff to your students, if you feel like we're on the same page, then you might want to check out my books. They may just be a fun addition to the method book series that you already know and love, or a replacement for a book that's just not working for you. If you want to go back a level, then be sure to check out the pre-reading skills video that I mentioned. That link is in the description. And if you're ready to move forward, as soon as I have the next level skills all ready in a video for you, I will link that right here. It's going to be level 1A. Thank you for sticking around to the end of this video, and I hope to see you on another video very soon.